Yeah, Carmen, Elda, Chester, thank you for allowing me to come to San Antonio and visit your beautiful home to talk about the Oneto, my father, and the family. A few minutes ago, Chester told me a story, and he said, Mom, Tia Carmen once told me the Solises are good people. They'll always be there for you. Explain what you meant when you told Chester that many years ago.
The way they treated me and to me and their family, because I was not a Solis, I was a Cruz from another family because of my parents. But they took me like that, real nice, and they continued that until they died.
Nice. So tell me about meeting Tio Neto. What was do you recall the moment when you met him?
Yes, I met him because he was working in this grocery store, and my father has this grocery store. And all of them help each other. If a customer comes in, they say he wants to buy whatever, I don't have it. Let me change it to the next one. And that's the way we can help each other. So he was working here and I was here helping my father. So one day he came over to the change and he looked at me and looked at me. I didn't say anything, I just said, no, let's just make the exchange and that's it. Okay? So he left and he was over there where the place is working. He said, hey, I just met a girl and I like her right away. She's working there. You know why? Because it's the daughter of the owner of the store. What? She's the daughter of the owner of the store? Yes. And her name is Carmen, like her mother, because my mother used to be Carmen. But they call me Carmen, but my mother, I don't know, everybody calls her Carmela. Why? We don't know.
Fascinating. And at what point did you meet my grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Solis, Tio Neto's parents? What do you
Well, I
remember?
met him when we were gonna get married.
Ah, okay.
Now, these days, they go and visit the parents and they know each other. But in our days, no. You go over there if you're gonna get married. You're not gonna go to this house and this house. No.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And do you remember that exact meeting when you met them and what were they like? Because I never really knew them at all.
No, but the minute I met them, they were very nice. But she was more talk to me, and his father was a little bit quiet. And it was because he was thinking what he was gonna do, because he also sell insurance policies too.
Really?
Yes,
Fascinating.
that's what he did.
Incredible. Incredible.
I don't know if Ernesto got idea because of his father or on his own. But he said, I'm not gonna cut hair anymore. I'm gonna go over there and get the license to sell life insurance. And from then on, until he died.
Super. Chester also mentioned how Tio Neto would talk about being young and picking pecans and picking crops out in the field. Do you remember him telling you stories about that and with his family?
No, he didn't want it to say that because he didn't want me to know that he were going over there
Fascinating.
to the fields and all that.
Yeah.
He told me all that story after we got married. Because I was very embarrassed to tell you about the way we lived.
Yeah.
And you live different. Yeah. Well, I live different because my father has the store.
Right.
The grocery store, that's why.
And at what point did you meet my father, Jose Luis Solis? Did you meet him before you got married to Tio Neto?
No, we met him when before we got married. When we announced that we're gonna get married, then he says, since we're gonna get married now, you have to, my parents, my family, so that you will know.
Super. And at that point, he was out of the Marines, or was that? Did you get married before he entered the Marines?
Who?
Theo Neto. When he entered the Marine Corps, did you get married before he went into the service?
No, after.
After. Okay.
After.
Okay. And now, what was that like? Because that's a pretty impressive thing, being a member of the Marine
He said,
Corps.
no, I'm gonna go right now, because if I go after we get married, I'm gonna be very worried, because I have to leave you in the room so I can go and work, whatever I'm gonna do, and in the city that they're gonna send me.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. You're gonna be in danger. So no. Until I cover the Marines, then we'll get married.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And it was okay, because I was 15 years old and he was 16 years old. I mean, why do you want to get married at that age?
Yeah. Boy, y'all fell in love early, 15 and 16. Mm-hmm. Y'all weren't playing around. That was a lifetime true love story.
Beautiful story, because I never had boyfriends and he never had met girlfriends.
Yeah.
As if we were meant for each other.
Amazing. Just amazing. I have to say that I'm so honored that you're my godparents.
See?
My father selected you and Theo Neto to be my godparents, almost.
I saw my mom earlier and she's like, no, we aren't. I'm like, yes, you are. Yes. Oh, what? Confirmation, baptism?
Baptism, yeah.
Oh,
so, yeah. Yeah.
You and Dan baptized Joey.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I don't
know.
So
es su madrina then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I consider that to be a big honor. Theo Neto would always call me about his life insurance contracts, and so he mentored me so much. So I'm always so grateful. And this is fascinating to know that my grandfather Solis was also in the insurance business. That's like 3 generations.
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
I guess that's why he wanted that upset, because they Neto go to college. No, I don't want to go. You go, Pancho, Raul, and all of them went, except him. And he said, no, I don't want to go, and I'm not going. I'm going to see what I can do to improve myself.
Outstanding. A few moments ago, you talked about Theo Neto having the gift of the gab. That is, he could inform you, educate you, and sell you everything about life insurance. That was quite a gift that he had.
Oh, yes.
After he was in the hair business as a barber.
Yeah.
So
that's where he started. When he was cutting hair and all that, he was just talking to all the customers. And they would say, now you're next. No, I'm going to go with Mr. Solis. We want them to cut my hair. And I also have my children, so he can cut them up too.
Incredible.
Why? Because Ernesto was like that. You attract people just by talking to them. Yeah. He said, I like that. He's going to cut my hair.
And he had so many jokes. The jokes were incredible.
Oh, yes. And he would memorize all of them. So, how can you remember all of them, honey? Because that helps me, honey. Because when I selling insurance and all that, I say, let me give you this. And I joke like that. So that, he got into a habit and was faster to sell it out.
A true born salesman, right?
Oh, yes.
Tia Carmen, I don't know if you remember the prank that I played on Theo Neto when I pretended to be from Time Warner. Do you remember that story? I don't know if you remember that story. So I came down to Laredo and there was a boxing match on TV. And there was a young man, like 12 years old, who came in and he was working on the TV. Then he went outside, he came back. And obviously he was an employee of Time Warner, but we were able to watch the game. So the next Monday, I called Theo Neto and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a prank. I'm going to pretend I'm with Time Warner Internal Affairs with security. and tell him that we found out that he was accessing the machine and da 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 da. And he believed it. So I had him on the phone for 10 minutes. And then at the end, I said, "No, Tio Neto, this is just Joey." He says, "Oh, thank God, you scared me." He loved that story, and my father loved that story so much because I thought to myself, how am I going to prank a Marine, right? And I got away with it. So it was something that really bonded us together. It was just fabulous. But those jokes, I mean, you would be just laughing hysterically. Where did he get that skill, that toque?
All by himself, because none of the brothers were like that. None of them.
Yeah. In reference
And
to...
he would talk and talk and talk. He could talk there, and I don't think he's okay, honey, I'm going to go to sleep.
In fact, you brought up that word a few moments ago, which I loved. I remember from the 80s how you would always address him as honey, honey. And I thought, I'd never heard that before and said in that way. And I love the way you used to say that. Can you say that again, honey?
Honey. Yeah, because I didn't call him Neto, because I never could call him Neto. I had to call him Ernesto, because that's when I met him, and his name. But he introduced himself, dijo, "I'm Ernesto Solis." Dije, "I'm Carmen Cruz." Okay? So, ¿cómo decirle Neto?
And was it your mom or his mom who would say, "Why don't you call him Neto?"
Yeah, everybody will ask me, "Why don't you call him Neto?" Everybody calls him Neto. But I don't care if everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. I met him as Ernesto, and that's how I'm going to call him.
Outstanding.
And they were honeys. They were so close together. I mean, you could learn about love watching them. So
And
when
we
you
were
say honey,
married 57 years.
57 years. Magnificent. Magnificent. Tia Carmen, how would you describe the relationship between my father and Tio Neto? Were they, what kind of buddies were they over the years, in the early years and also later years? What do you remember?
But Joe was a quiet boy all the time. So most of the time, Ernesto was the one who talked and Joe and do this, Joe and what are you doing and all that. All the time, he was the one who talk. To everybody. No one or any who it is, he would say all the time. Because he's one like that. He wanted to talk and let people know what he thinks or advice or whatever. He was always like that. So by the time that he was, I said, "No wonder, honey, you're tired because you talk too much all day. You don't stop. You don't stop." "Oh, yes, I'm so tired now. I'm tired, honey. Okay, go to sleep. I'm going to watch a movie. Can you go to sleep?"
well, Mom, do you remember the hundreds of times you would be out anywhere and somebody would say, "Neto, you used to cut my hair when I was a little kid."
Mm-hmm.
You remember? Can you give an instance of that at all anywhere? Do you remember all that?
Oh, yes. When they saw him, "Neto, you used to cut my hair." I did. Oh, no wonder. Because you're grown up. I don't remember who. Because you cut hair for everybody. And sometimes Mr. Solis, we can take our little boy over there to the shop. I'll go over there. I'll cut his hair at your house. No problem. And he will go. Come, cut his hair. They pay him. Bye-bye, see you.
He was always hustling and making things happen.
Yeah. But he was the way what I'm trying to say is that the way he feels and do it. Not because I have to please this body, I have to please. No. He was like that. Of all the brothers.
And what about service
Even
members?
if the others, they have a graduation from college and everything like that, they could come to him. He would go over there. "Neto, how can you do it?" "Well, that's the way I am. What I say, what I feel." That's what I'm gonna do.
Where did he get so much energy? How did Tio Neto have so much energy? Did he
Well,
actually?
because he was like that.
Okay.
From the time you met him.
He had energy all the time. By the time he would say, "Ay, honey, I'm tired," it's because he did a lot of things. But if he can do 1 or 3 things, whatever, there he was ready. Honey, you want to go? Where? Let's go to the movies. Bueno, we have to eat first. No, we can eat over there. And then we go to the movies. And back then we had 7 theaters. So we can go any theater we like to go. Now we only have one. At the mall.
At the mall.
And that's it.
You would take Elda too, right?
Hmm?
Tell him how you would take Elda to the movies too, to the theater.
Oh, yes. When we went to the movies, we'll take her. My mother would say, leave Elda with us. No, Mama, we want to take her. What I would do, I would take a little blanket, and then I put a little blanket, and then we lay her there. Let's go there, and let's go there, and we watch the movie. And then I would come and tell my mother, Viejita, pues why? Leave it with us. Le dije, no, we want to take her this time. The restaurant and I want to take her this time. And what are you going to do? I already planned it. I have a little blanket. We're going to, in the middle, I'm going to lay her there. I'm going to take her bottle. And I would sit in this, and the next two would sit over there. Ay, mijita, no. Sí.
Talking about fun activities like that, a few moments ago, Elda, you mentioned that my father taught DJ or taught you how to swim.
DJ.
DJ. That's an unusual circumstance. How did that happen?
Well, when your dad was living at North Creek condos, we lived garage, like in other words, our garage was back to back. So I used to see him every day. So in the mornings, so I would open his garage. I mean, he would open his, I would open mine, and so I would get to see Theo every day, talk to him. You know, it was mostly in the morning, and go over to his place like on holidays or whatever. He always had a gift for me. You know, well, mija, because he would call me mija, not Elda, mija, always. Mija, well, mija, pues I have a little gift here, like if you want to come by and see. And there was one time, like, I guess a year after my dad died, he sent me a birthday card, a beautiful birthday card. And it's, you know, from your Tio Joe, you know, and I remember that he was very thoughtful and quiet, but funny at times.
Super. Now, when you talk about fun at times, were there any moments that come to mind where like, oh, that was such a hilarious moment, I wasn't expecting that, or anything?
He would just come out with things sometimes that were funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he was a very patient person and loving person. Yes.
That must
very
have made you
patient.
that must have made you feel wonderful how he called you Mija.
Yeah. And so when I spoke to him, I don't really like texting. So when I would call, or he would call me, hi, Mia, how are you doing, or whatever. And well, we would talk about my dad and everything. And I could tell that he was already breaking down. And so was I. So it's like, it's only been a year, I feel. But, you know, no, it's been like 3 years. But for me, it's been only a year, you know. And so.
From your perspective, Elda, what kind of relationship did my father and your father have that you observed as a young person, also as an adult?
Well, I don't recall too many things about, you know, because your dad went to, or your parents were in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And then finally came to Laredo. And then they lived here in Hillside on Arizona Street.
Yes.
And so my dad and your dad would visit, you know. And then he moved back to San Antonio, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. And did DJ and my father interact in any ways?
Yes, every time because we lived in the same condos.
Cool.
Yes.
That's a great story about how he taught him how to swim.
Yes.
Outstanding.
Like I tell you, he was quiet but fun at times, and funny,
Elda, out of curiosity, did you know our grandparents, our Solis grandparents, and what do you recall of them? Because I really, again, did not have any interactions with them because I was so young.
Yeah, I recall when Tia Beba took Grandma Solis to San Antonio, and she would make the flour tortillas, like big old flour tortillas the size of a plate.
Really?
And she would put Velveeta cheese in the tortilla, and then she would just give it to us, like a little snack. And I was like, well, these are super good, so we would just sit there and eat.
Why do you think the tortillas were so big? Because Native Americans tend to make large pieces of bread, right? And that's a very...
And they were big, like a size of a plate.
Incredible. Do you think she got that from, like, who
Or
taught...
maybe from her mom or something. Yeah.
Any other memories about what she was like, her
She
personality?
made good soups, like
Yeah.
beef soup, and she also would make homemade corn tortillas on that little thing that you press. I don't know what it's called, that little machine thing.
I also heard over the years that she was very meticulous with cleaning. That, for example, when she would clean a pot, she would fill the sink full of hot water, like boiling hot, and then
Yes.
put the items in there to make sure all the germs were killed. But it was like,
Everything was boiling all the time. Boiling water, yeah.
she didn't mess around. If something was going to be cleaned, it was going to be cleaned big
The
time.
right way.
The right way. Just amazing. Chester, what was it like for you to come into the Solis tribe? I know you have a background coming from Kansas, so here you are in South Texas. Was it a radical change for you?
It was a change. It was like Gunsmoke. In a loving way, okay? I mean, I enjoyed it because it was more feelings. And it wasn't just, like California or big cities, go, 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 go. It was down to earth, and everybody was nice and decent. They would talk to you. I had met Mr. Solis and Mom, and, and I was like, what's this going to be like, I didn't know what the deal was. I thought Elda had said, let's go visit my parents in Laredo for the holidays. Well, what did I know about a different race of people? Okay, and Elda didn't seem like a different race of people because she was up there in this all-girls college and like all the rest of the girls. So, I mean, I never really thought about it. And so when I came to Laredo, I thought, well, we're going to go see Dirt Floors, her mom and dad. I mean, I didn't know, and I didn't want to say nothing, because I really liked Elda a lot, and I wanted to meet her mom and dad, and she liked me. And so I get to this house, this big, beautiful house with marble floors and and it's clean as a drop of water. And I'm like, oh, what did I know? Okay. And they talked to me like I was their son. I mean, just it was so awesome from day one since I met them. They've been excellent. And Mom had told me that all the solicitors were like saints. They were all the perfect people in the whole world. You'll never meet a better family than that. And I'm like, yeah, right. You tell me all you want. What's she gonna say, right? Well, I noticed after a few years of meeting everybody, she was right, absolutely right. And talking to your dad, we would talk about engineering things, and he would just way over my head. And he told me, he said, one thing that I don't like. Because I said, look, you're really, really super smart, okay? And I mean, I could never keep up with you. And he said, one thing I don't like is I have to repeat myself to people. I don't like that. And so since then, I found out that genius type people say that same thing, okay? So he was on that level. And he was loving. Your dad was so loving all the time. I've seen him react with Elda many times, and it's like, it's just like her dad. It's family. With the Alara, they would all hug each other and talk to each other. It may be a couple of years since they've seen each other, but they would get together as if it had just been yesterday. Every day they see each other. I mean, Tia Laura, with Elda, would just speak like her mom, and that's how Elda thought about them. Well, like your mom and dad, like they're her mom and dad. I mean, because she didn't know, that only one was actually blood relative. She thought they were both. I mean, that's how she grew up. Family, strong family, and that I want to relate to you that there is a seriously strong family relationship between all of them. And her tias, we would go see them, or they would come out, and it was like, they hug each other and everything else, but then they just sit down like nothing's ever happened. We had no time between them, and just talk like I mean, it was like, this is awesome. I mean, coming from a family and history up above, up north, coming down here, I heard, Hispanic people have close ties, and I found out it's true, absolutely true, and it's beautiful. I mean, something like it's just the hand of God was on this, and I knew that this was special. It really was. And so, after a few years, Elda decided that she'll marry me, and so we got married, and it's been a wonderful time with Elda. It hasn't been a culture shock at all. I mean, Laredoans are just like all the rest of the Americans I've ever known, and I thought, well, it was going to be different, and you know how it is when you don't know. And so, but I found out it was awesome. It was even better. And I asked Dad one time, I said, look, what is it about Mexicans that love Mexico? And they all want to go back to Mexico. I mean, what do they love about Mexico? Okay. Why do you sit and talk about Mexicans this? And I see Mexicans with the flags and everything else, but they live here in the United States. I live here in the United States, and what is it? He said, well, Chester, it's the culture. It's the music, the beautiful music. Now, Dad used to sing all the time. It was beautiful watching him sing with the mariachis, the restaurants, and ranchitos. And he said, to music, it's the way that we embrace life, and we love with feelings on everything. And I'm like, really, this is awesome. So tell me more, Dad. And he said, well, it's a beautiful country in Mexico, and it's beautiful weather. It's not always hot like here in Laredo. It's beautiful weather, and people, in the little pueblos and towns, they dress with cotton outfits, and they all do for everything, for each other. And he said, that's what it's mainly about, is love, feelings, and honoring God. And I'm like, that's why people like Mexico.
Amazing. Chester, when I arrived about 20 minutes ago, I mentioned to you that I feel like an archaeologist looking for gold in the ground. And you told me about this video you made with my tío Neto, where you filmed him. And he was aware that future generations would want to know our story. And you videotaped it, and thank you in advance for sharing that film with me. And I'm going to upload it and find a way to share that story, those stories with you. But what did you feel at that moment when you visited all of the places that he lived at, etc.?
Well, he dressed up in a nice suit, and in the beginning was the morning, and he took us to where he originally had grown up with all the family members, where he told me about the way it was. It would be, people would be, the brothers and sisters would be all on the floor, laying down, and you had a bathroom outside, and, just explained to me on the video how it was. That sometimes, it would get smelly inside, we'd open a window, but it was more smellier outside because of the creek, okay, the Zacate Creek, and things like that, okay, he remembered. And so he was standing there while I was videotaping with his cowboy hat on, his suit on, and he's like, this is where we grew up, this is where it all started, and, and he would walk down the block, and I videotaped him walking and say, well, this is where such and such lived, and this is where I would go and ask them for oranges and grapefruits and ask for extra for my family, and they would give it to me. And this house was here. This house was where Huevo grew up, which is a famous judge down here. His nickname is Huevo because he used to sell eggs when he was a kid. And, and then we went paused and we went up the street more to where the stores were where he grew up, and the bridge over Zacate Creek, and standing on the bridge, and it got hot, so he took his jacket off, and discussing how when he was a kid he would play on this bridge and down in that creek, and he said it's considerably cleaner now, Chester. All right. You know, and I would get a close up of all the creek way down below underneath the bridge, and the little stores that were along the way. He said back then it was called this, and this is what they sold, and you know it's nothing like that now. It's like a convenience store, and so we continued on going to the different places that he lived with Carmen and Elda, and so he would tell me about the Christmases, how he would decorate these homes and do this, and the neighbors around, and all the way till we got to Tio Renee's house. And he stood in Tio Renee's house. I turned it on. He said, "Okay, here we are in front of the rich and famous." You know? He's like, "This is my little brother, but I'm so proud of him. He's made me proud all my life." You know, and he goes through talk about all of his brothers, Tio Pancho, all of them, and what they did, and how when he decided he's going to go to barber school, he went to San Antonio, right, and stayed with Tio Pancho, and how. He would, you know, he's a young man, he would go out and have a few beers, and, you know, after classes and stuff. And he came home one night, and and he was like, I didn't know if he was hallucinating or what. There was a turtle walking across the floor in the bedroom. Right? He got up the next morning. It was really awesome what he told us. He got up the next morning, and the little kid, I guess his niece or whatever, right? Was like with the little turtle. And he's like, "Oh,
It was true.
It was true." So, it's a wonderful video that he wanted to be able to give to his grandchildren and their grandchildren, so people would know how he grew up and how all the family grew up from day one that he remembered, and how his dad would walk across to Mexico from that house, walk all the way into Mexico, across the bridge, and pick up groceries. And he would carry groceries back with him almost every day. And that's how he did it. Didn't have a lot of money, but he made enough to go buy groceries across that were super cheap, and where he would be able to give the family something to eat every day. And, you know, to listen to this, you know, it's awesome. I'm getting on camera, buddy. And then another video I made was Mom and Dad's, I think, 50th wedding anniversary. One of those anniversaries. And where Dad had wanted to talk to, like, DJ, his grandson, and whoever else comes after that, and explain to him what it was like back in the old days when he first met Mom, and what he went through, the whole process of her working at the store. He was, you know, working at Jimmy Jungle, a little grocery store back then, and he talks about his brothers, all of his brothers, his sisters, the whole family, and it's an awesome little video. And where he wanted to give the history and let these relatives in the future know what the history was. And so he really concentrated on it. On this is the history, where you're from, you know. And so I know that's going to be treasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. When I hear those stories about the brothers, the siblings sleeping on the floor side by side, how do you think that humble upbringing affected the Oneto, the brothers? Like, how did it influence them in
life?
life?
I asked you one time, pardon me, ladies, but I asked you about that because I wanted to know. I mean, you know, they're all college educated. Most of them, maybe the sisters aren't. I don't know. I don't remember now. And but they're all go. They're go-getters. They're not just sitting around getting welfare and getting government subsidies. They support themselves and their whole family without question. And where did they get that drive? Was it because they were, you know, not exactly the upper crust when they grew up, or what? And he said, "Well, Chester, I'll tell you what it was. It's because my father would tell us, and my mom would tell us, you go out and do the best you can. Always do everything you can, the best you can, and never stop. Always go. Every single day of your life, go forward." All right? And he said, you know, Chester, we all read the Bible when we were young. my mom would read the Bible to us. And we read that, fear is not of the Lord. The Lord says go forward. And so he said, nothing ever scared me. Going to college, living with Tio Pancho, to getting the education I needed to come back and open a hair salon, the first hair salon ever. And he said, I watched my brothers, my sisters, what they did. They went to college and they were super smart, educated. So I wasn't. I was just smart. I mean, Dad, yeah, you're really smart because you intelligent person and well vocabulary. I'm very good. And he would say his brothers and everybody went to the service, and well, he went to the service and went into being a clerk in the service because he was smart. They said, "Oh, you're going to be a typer, typing out stuff and submitting invoices and this and this and this," and that's what he did. He said, "I didn't have to go to war. I was there doing that easy." So he said, "Since I did that so easily, I learned." And so when I got out, I had this under my belt. I knew how to be with the business. Okay, so he opened several businesses, the tuxedo rental, in addition to a couple of facilities at one time even. Of hairstylists, and hired several men to work in the hairstylist salons for him. And he was a go-getter. And like I believe Mom had alluded to earlier, that all the brothers and everybody were college educated. And they were like, "Juanito, how is it that you're doing better than all of us? And you never went to college."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's like go. And he said, I learned it from my whole family. Actually, because the brothers and everybody grew up. Tio Pancho, he was the first one, got older, and he took off. And he was gone out of the house. He said, we all missed Tio Pancho. That the family would sit around and cry because they missed Tio Pancho because he took off. And then the next one, and the next one, went to service. And then the sisters. And then they got married and stuff. And he said, we all were, we were close because we grew up, side by side, sleeping on that floor. And but we never ever lost that closeness, is what he said. And he said because of the way they grew up.
Magnificent.
Yep. And the way his dad was, that would go to Mexico and buy groceries for everybody. And then Mom would make things and then and I was gonna say, Elda, there's a story about Dad's dad, your grandfather. Okay, how was he with you? And she was a shy little girl.
I was super shy, so he would be like teasing me, like I would come in and he's like, "Oh, so you're here now? You came to visit." So I was scared out of my mind, so I would go and hide under the bed. And I wouldn't come out till the visit was over. I wouldn't come out till the visit was over at my grandparents'. That's how he was.
What Chester said about Tio Neto being go, now it makes sense. It was in his DNA. It was in his blood. Mm-hmm. He couldn't do anything. Now that I hear this, he wasn't the type to be sitting in front of the TV for 7 hours.
No, he had to be on the go all the time.
Super. Just amazing. What other memories do you have where there were experiences that surprised you, either like a unique thing that happened or something that showed a side of Tio Neto that was unique and different? Anything come to mind in terms of like maybe sad things that may have happened and how he dealt with those challenges?
Well, I could come up with a good thing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it. Okay. On holidays, he would go out and buy hams and turkeys and take them to people that he knew.
His customers.
And not just the customers, but poor people. And he and I would load up in a car with a whole bunch of turkeys and hams, and he would say, "Don't tell Mom." Okay?
Don't tell Mom.
And so we would go out and we would deliver all these things and to these people, and some of them were like, they lived in, cardboard and plywood houses. And they would come out and they would just start bawling and crying because, they have something to give their family. And he would buy tortillas, and which he didn't need to, and he would buy tamales from some of these customers that needed the money. And he would give those away to other people, and just to help everybody out. He was so always helpful. He would see the janitor at the bank, where he worked at the bank. Okay, he went to work at the bank, and it was awesome. Well, he would see the janitor, and he would see the upper crust, and treated them all the exact same. He would be standing talking to the janitor, and people would walk by like. He would do that. He would tell me these stories, okay? And the people would walk by like, and he's like, well, they didn't like me talking to the janitor. But the janitor's just like us, Chester. And he's just like us. We're all going to go to the same place. All right? And they're nice, too. They're down to earth. And when I talk to the richer people, the people that are well-to-do, they're superficial, Chester. They're not heartfelt. Like we all grew up heartfelt. Maybe they didn't grow up like we did, and so they don't have that. But he said, because we grew up like that, that's how we are, is we talk to everybody like we're all family. And he said, every person you meet out there is a potential customer. Okay? Yep.
Yeah,
What an entrepreneurial mind, right?
Yes.
No discrimination. Hey, everyone's a friend, a potential client, etc.
Yep.
And if anybody would lose a job, they would call him. Hi, Mr. Solis, if you could, give a word for me, because I'm applying at the bank to know anybody there. So he would talk to that person that is in charge, like the president of the bank, and he would squeeze them in there. You know what I mean?
So he was a networking genius also.
Yes.
Yes.
El mero mero, right?
Yep. He would tell people, where you at? I'm going to come pick you up. Really? He would pick them up and take them to talk with the president of the bank and say, this person needs a job. And this person, he would tell me, they're just sitting there going, oh man, they're scared to death. But he would tell them, pick it up, talk to him, talk to the president. And just like us, we're all together. He said, talk to them. And they would get hired every single time.
Just incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
That characteristic of giving, always being there for people, that's a thread I see with my father, Tio Neto, Tio Pancho. Like, they went overboard helping people.
Yes, they did. When I first met Tio Pancho, he said, come here, sit down. I don't want to be looking up at you. Okay. Well, he's got these big old thick glasses on, And I'm like, okay, who's this? This is awesome. This guy's, he's different. And I sat down and talked to him. Well, he's the same. He's the same as all the brothers, all the tios. And I'm like, this guy is serious. I mean, seriously serious. I mean, your dad was a smart guy, and he was serious. But Tio Pancho, he was seriously serious. I mean, everything he had to say was thought about, the words. Didn't come out of his mouth, flowing. He thought about every single word, everything he was saying. And I would ask him questions, and he would stop and he would think for a minute and come out with exactly what I wanted to hear. I mean, he knew how to talk, and he took his time. And you would think, well, he's kind of slow, but he was not slow. He just talked slow, meticulously with every single word that he ever said. That was my experience. And I interviewed him on camera several times. I interviewed all the family members on camera many times. Family get-togethers, family reunions, weddings. And so I have many tapes of all this, which I'll give you, and do something with them. I'm waiting for somebody like yourself to actually do something with these instead of just sitting there in the drawer. And, because DJ, the grandchild of Neto.
Great.
Well, he's busy. He's busy with his life. He barely has time to sit and watch a movie, and let alone, something with, Dad. Not only that, he gets choked up every time he sees something like that, or even thinks about that. He gets choked up, and, he's still like that. Because the grandchild loved Dad and Mom like they were their mom and dad.
And he does call them mom and dad.
Yep. So, I mean, even with the grandchild, that whole thread still remains and is active. And then even his children, they grow up a lot richer, you know, not rich, but I mean, than the previous, all right, generations. And they're down to earth. They come over, Grandma, we love you. Grandma, we love you. And I mean, they're hugging you and kissing you and everything. Well, you know, not all little kids do these things. And DJ brought them up to do that. Go give them a hug. Tell them you love them. Well, I mean, they do it automatically just from their heart. And you can see it because, I mean, their little eyes will start tearing up. And it's like, well, they really do love them. It's amazing. So, you know, they have the Solis blood in them.
That concept of corazon, when Tio Neto would sing those Mexican ballads, you know, it was all corazon.
Sí.
And it's amazing that I find myself getting choked up even now. And it's crazy how that comes down the bloodline.
Yep. I would go to restaurants with him, and he would get up and start singing with the mariachis.
Oh, super. Incredible.
And
Beautiful.
we would go to the ranchitos, and he would be singing. Well, you know, I don't know the Spanish at all. But I would be like, this is a beautiful song, you know? And then, and so, you know, we got our smartphones, and then, you know, we start downloading music and getting music off, you know, free music. And we would listen to the old ballads of the older songs. And they're beautiful. I don't have any idea what they are. What they mean.
His heart specialist, when he would go, you know, to see him, he says, come on, Bohemio. He would call him Bohemio. Let's sing a song. So they would be singing, and the rest of the patients were outside waiting on him.
Just to please him.
Just, you know, because he liked the way that sang. So like, come on. He would call him Bohemio. He goes, come on, let's sing a song. He goes, and your patients? Oh, they could wait. They could wait.
Thea, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the big life lessons DJ and all of the descendants of our family, what life lessons did Tio Neto teach you, and what do you recall? Like, what can we learn from his life?
Because he was very giving for everywhere. Since he started walking, he was like that. He would go to the neighbors. Can you give me some fruit? Okay, Neto, we'll give you an apple or whatever. We'll get it. Can you put more in here? Because my brothers and sisters are at home and they don't have anything to eat. Can you put some over here? Oh, yes, Neto. We're going to do it. If they put apples and bananas and everything. And there he was. Why did you do? Neto, why did you do that? No, but they're going to give me one for me, but I asked for the rest of the family. So this is how I got it. I couldn't believe it when she was telling me that. And I said, Neto, you did that? Yes. But they were going to give me everything, only for me. And what about my brothers and my sisters at home? They don't have anything like that. So I just put my chair like that for them to put everything in here.
Incredible.
Hey, Mom, your dad would go out as a little kid all the time.
All the time.
And I mean, from morning till dark.
Oh,
and
yes.
What did they do one particular time to try to stop him from going out?
But they telling me, say, no, I'm just going to play here. And they think he was playing on that. And he was two blocks away.
Well, did they
playing
dress
over
him?
there.
They dressed
playing
him.
over there. And
Remind me about
They
that.
dressed him, remember?
Eh?
Abuelita Aurora dressed him.
See, as a girl, so he won't go wrong. He just put it up like that and leave. Why you dress up so I could come out? But I just put it up back there, and I'm ready to play with it.
So his mother put a dress on him and he said, I don't care, I'll just
care.
adjust it, but I'm going out.
As long as I go over there and play with the kids.
Just fabulous. You can't make that stuff up. You just can't make that stuff up.
No, you have to feel it to do it. You have to. Otherwise, you don't do anything like that. Why? Because you don't have those feelings. And he had it all the time,
Tia Carmen,
all year round.
all year round. Incredible. Tia Carmen, tell me about the Cruz family. Your family. Your father was an entrepreneur, had the grocery store. What was the Cruz family like? Your family.
Well, we were 9 children, but one died, and we left only 8. 6 girls and 2 boys. 3 boys, and one of them died, and only the 2 are left alive.
So you also came from a family with lots of siblings. So when you meshed with the Solis family, you kind of understood what it was like to have a lot of siblings.
Yes, yeah. Because there also was a big family too. So.
And did the Cruz family and the Solis family intermingle in any ways, or were
Yeah.
y'all like living in separate lives?
So they knew Ernesto was like that. So you better be careful because this girl is their parents. Okay? Where their parents live. You have to be very careful where you go. Okay, Mom. Okay. They advise him right away.
Wow. And what was your father like?
Was as a grocery man, he was always on the go. Getting at the groceries. And then on the way back to the store, we had a refrigerator from one end to the other for flowers. He would make containers of flowers.
Like a florist.
And then they would send, and they needed the bowls, and nobody could do them. What are we gonna do? Because one time they told me, Hijita, can you do a bowl? Because I'm gonna try to. So I started one. I made it was normally, and it came out beautiful. Hijita, from now on, you're gonna do all the bowls to the store. So he would come when I was sick. He would come all the rolls of all colors. Hijita, I want 15 from this one, 20 from this one, 10 from this one, only 2 of these ones. And I would put all of them on the bed because I was having surgery or whatever, and I had to be. But I did it just to help my father in the store.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And did they have a
And
nickname for Dad?
they didn't ask my sisters because we were 6 girls. Nobody could do them. The both, nobody could do them.
And you had the toque.
So I said, no, pues if I can do it, I can do it.
What about your mother? What was she like?
No, my mom only took care of us and the best she could, whatever.
But the containers, she would make the
No,
containers.
she also make the containers too.
And fast.
And the
With the
advice.
flowers and all that. And I would wrap the can with foil paper, all colors, whatever. The red or blue, purple, yellow, orange, whatever they ask. And then I will make a bowl too. And she would say, Mijita, I need 3. By the time, and she was very fast to do it. My mother could do 2 or 3, and my father was ending the number 1.
Mom, what about advice?
He could go over very slow, and my mother would do faster. Here, mijita, put the bowl. My father, and ay, honey, please, viejo, porque that's how they do in those days. Viejo, faster.
No.
Yes, my father. No, because he couldn't do it. If he wanted to do it fast, the can and everything, the flowers and all, the water and everything, because they were fresh flowers. So he could split all over the water now.
So where was the Cruz grocery store in relation to the Solis household? Was it a mile away, 2 miles away, 3 miles away? Do you recall?
Well, they live on Farragut, and our store was on San Augustine. And right across that store was a police station.
Okay.
Police station was there. And then 4 stores was here. And ours was way back here.
So you were essentially, you came from a middle class family.
Yes.
In that, which was rare in Laredo during that time, because this would be what years would this have been? 19.
Was beginning in the 40s.
40s.
And from then.
Wow, so this is before World War II. Incredible. Chester, you're going to ask.
Yeah, Mom. Remember, your mom would give you and your sisters advice. Okay. About godly things, about this, about everything. I mean, and Mom still comes up with, this is what my mom would tell me about this and this. And I'm like, well, how does she know this? I mean, it's all biblical. How does she know exactly what the Bible says about this major item? So tell her, just elaborate a little bit about what your mom would tell you and your sisters about, this or this or this, and don't do this for your future life, because, they're girls, right?
Yeah, you don't have to do this and play with everybody and no fighting and don't lie. If somebody asks you, something happens and somebody asks you what happened, tell them the truth. Remember, the truth is God.
Beautiful.
And don't you forget it.
That's powerful.
Just keep it in mind.
And married, good-looking men are not going to have ugly kids, right? You would say, get married, good-looking men or guys, because they're not going to have ugly kids.
See, we're 6 girls. If you buy a boyfriend, a handsome one, so that your children will be good-looking. She would advise us that. And then when the best were married, the 6 of girls, Ernesto was the favorite one.
What was his
Neto.
nickname?
Ay, here comes Neto, mijito. He's a little bit happy, mijita. My dad would tell me, don't tell him anything, okay? He's not drunk. He's not going to do anything. He just took at least 3 beers. And that's all. So don't tell him anything. Okay, mijita? Okay, then.
They would call him the golden boy.
The golden boy.
The golden boy.
As they say in Spanish, el favorito.
El favorito. Porque they were 6.
So at an early age, Tío Neto had that energy, that vibrancy. He was full of life, where he was almost like a magnet, right? Like he would just attract people.
Yes.
And that's powerful, because you're talking not about 3 or 4 people, you're talking a whole city that would call him for job connections. That must have been wild for you.
He recommended everybody. I mean, they would go with him, Mr. Solis. I don't care, fine. Okay, I'll go. Okay. Where are you going to work? Over there. And they would tell these people they need a job. You have a space, you can hire them. Okay, Mr. Solis. They would listen to him. Dijo, honey, you don't even know those people. Yeah, but they need help, honey. And I want to help them. Okay. Okay, then.
It was almost, he had a psychology of knowing how to serve, when to serve, and how to do the right thing for people, which, when you look back, he was not going to benefit from that person getting a job.
Exactly.
No.
I mean, he did it from corazón.
Yes, from his heart. Because he was like that. And he started, like I say, when he was a little boy. But he said, Nito, why did you do that? Because they were going to give me only me. And what about my brothers and sisters that are here, younger than me? So I just did that, put him in here. There he was with his little child. And he was only 7 years old, 8 years old, at the most. But he knew what to say. Okay, Neto, we'll give you some for your family.
That transition from being in the service hair business to getting into the insurance business, those are completely different industries, but he just excelled in the life insurance business. He was my mentor. He connected me with a company that I'm currently writing insurance with. And I remember him calling me all the time, telling me about new companies, new opportunities. And that must have been so beautiful for you to hear this man you live with out there helping so many people.
Yeah,
Well, tell him the
because he's
story.
been like that since he was very young.
Mom, tell him the story. When Dad came home and said, I want to change my job.
Oh, yes. We had a hairstylist shop with 8 employees. And he said, honey, I'm going to change my job. You said, what? You've been cutting hair for years, honey? And we already have the business. There are 8 rooms. And you're the owner. We are the owners. Yeah, but I'm tired of cutting hair. I'm going to do something else. You said, what? You never want to go to college. Your brothers were, Pancho were begging you, Raul, Joe, the oldest. And you tell them, no college. I'm going to do it. I don't know how, but I'm going to get out of it. Okay. Okay, Neto, okay.
So he went where for training?
So then he said, so he told me, honey, I don't want to cut hair anymore. What are you going to do? I'm going to sell it out. And I already have a buyer. Frank, one of the guys that works there, is going to buy for me. And what are you going to do? I'm going to sell insurance. But you're not an insurance man. No, but I want to become one. So, honey, you're not going to work in the school anymore because I'm going to get the job and I know I'm going to impress and I'm going to win something, tribes or whatever. That's what they give them. And you have to go with me. Otherwise, I have to go by myself because you're working.
So you got many trips.
No, you have to get out of the job so that you could go with me.
That was a big life change.
You went
Yes.
to Kentucky,
Went to Kentucky.
right, Mom? For training?
For training, that's when he went. And when he came back, he said, okay, now I'm ready to start. But he was so tactful. He convinced you right away. He had that gift of God, what I say. That he would talk to you as if he knows you. Because he really wants to help people. Because he said, if they're going to buy me, fine. If not, at least I advise them something, honey, that they don't know. But no, it happens that, okay, Mr. Solis, then we'll buy it for you.
Incredible.
And then I'm going to ask my children if they want insurance from you. And I'm just going to call you and tell you, Mr. Solis, come over. My children wants an insurance from you too. And that's how he did it all the time.
And all from scratch. It wasn't like he had a book of business that was given to him. He started from scratch, zero.
From scratch. But he had that ability to talk to people and convince you just by explaining them what he wanted. And they said, okay, Mr. Solis, we're going to help you. Thank you, Jesus.
Because that was a big transition. Now, how old was Theo Neto when he made that life transition? Was he in his 50s?
In the 60s.
His 60s.
In los 50s.
No, 60s. In the 60s.
In los 60s, yes.
Wow, so he made a career change, right? As people are retiring, wanting to stay home, he literally he sold one company and launched an entire practice.
And he stayed in that business until he died at 81 years old.
Sophia, for you, you're 88 right now.
88.
What has kept you going? You look fabulous. What life tips would you give young people when they ask, "Hey, how can I live to be 88?"
But just live and do your best. That's all. If they want to do it, pues they can hear you. If they don't, pues they don't hear you.
Are there any funny Tío Neto stories about maybe a trip to Mexico or a trip to Kentucky or some other place that like we had this experience on the road? Anything come to mind as far as trips that y'all had?
Aruba, no? He almost drowned in Aruba. He almost drowned in Aruba.
Ah, yes, because he said, I'm going to go do swimming. Le dije, honey, you don't know enough swimming. Oh, yes.
So he dived in.
Well, he was there, and then all of a sudden, he went, yes, he said, ay, please God, please God. He was sat there yelling and yelling and yelling. So we ran over, and two guys pulled him out of the water and said, thank you. Thank you.
Now, was that trip? I know in the life insurance business, agents who are successful go on or given trips. Did he go on a lot of these trips, or did you all go on a lot of these
because
trips?
he was the number one salesman. He always comes on the top of the rest. So here comes Mr. Solis. You won another trip because from all these guys that were selling, you came out number one for selling.
Amazing.
So we give you a trip, and you're not gonna pay anything. The flight was paid, the food was paid. But if you want, you can take extra money for souvenirs for your family. But that's all, because everything is paid for.
So you were able to share those wonderful experiences with him. How amazing. Amazing.
He went to Vegas once on one of those trips, and one of his friends or customers, both, one of them said, "You know, Neto, you're gonna go to Vegas. Here's a couple of $100. Bet it for me." Okay. Well, you know what generally happens, right? I mean, they go and they don't come back and say, "Yeah, look what I won for you." You know, it doesn't happen, right? But they knew Dad was that type of a guy. And sure enough, he says, "Honey, I'm going to bet this amount for this guy, his money." And he won huge, thousands of dollars. And when he came back to Laredo, he calls this guy, "Hey, are you available? I'm going to come over to your house." And he pays him all the money that he won from his money, all of it. Yep. So, I mean, that's a bold statement on his character.
No, he was a very, very honest man.
Yep.
And for you, Chester, that must have been incredible seeing these stories firsthand because, as you said, most people would say, "I'm going to keep the money, maybe give him $100 extra."
Oh, yeah.
I keep it all. You know?
Yeah.
And, well, he was amazing. He's when he first told me everybody you ever see is a potential customer. I had my own air conditioning business down here, and so he would walk up and say, "Hey, here's my card for my whatever I am, son-in-law," and he does air conditioning. And I see him do this, and it's like, well, I could do that. So everybody I saw, I would give him a card, and I would start talking to him. Next thing you know, I mean, like a flower, man, I bloomed. I started talking to everybody, and I was nonstop, blabbing to give to gab. I talked to everybody about my business, what I do, and everything else, and I would always get them as customers. And thankful to him that he did that. And then, he told me about his humble beginnings and how the way he is now and the way he is, and he's thankful to God about everything. He told me he has a tremendous amount of faith. Okay, when I first met him, I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay, guy talking about his faith, like all the guys, Well, no, I found out he had faith in God Almighty, and there's never, how do I say? There's always a solution, Chester. All right, all you have to do is pray about it. pray about it and you'll get the solution. I'm like, well, over the years, through trials and tribulations of the family, I've seen that as true. God is a good God with Dad. I mean, what Dad would ask for and pray about, Dad would get. And he would tell me, Chester, it just takes a little bit of faith, okay? And I'm like, well, that's true. I've read that. It takes a little bit of faith, this and this. And he's like, Chester, it takes faith. You have to believe. All the time believe. Never forget, always believe in God. And I'm like, okay. Over the years, that convinced me. Now, he totally convinced me with the way he lived his life as a good man and the way he had his prayers with God. Totally walked with God all the time. And I would always say, after I got to know him well, that someday, if Dad ever dies, he's going to walk right into heaven with his shoes on. I mean, there's no space in between. Dad was a saint, okay? And Mom had once told me that all the relatives on the Solis side were saints, just like Dad. Awesome people. And I came to believe that because I've talked with most all of them, and they were just like talking to, Abraham from the Bible, talking to men with sense and ladies like Elizabeth from the Bible. I mean, talking with women in the family. I've never had that experience talking to people like this. And they would treat me and talk to me like I was somebody to talk to, a family. I wasn't a stranger at all to anybody. And so he told me about their first car. For many years, they took the bus and took Elda on the bus. And on the bus, Mom over here wanted a rocking chair, right? Mm-hmm. And so he would tell this story many times. I heard it. He would tell other people this, and so I'll tell it. He went on the bus and went all the way downtown to, I think, Woolworth or someplace that had beautiful rocking chair. So Mom could rock Elda, okay, as a little baby. So he gets off the bus and goes in, buys this big rocking chair. And it hardly fit, it didn't fit in the bus. And so he had to have the door open holding this, okay? And before that happened, when he pulled the rocking chair off the shelf, some lady grabs it. She said, it's mine. So he had to fight with her to get that away from her, right? So it was a big deal just to get this rocking chair and then get it home, holding it outside the bus. And then getting home with a big old smile on his face, skipping in his walk, right? And says, honey, I got the rocking chair. And you know what she did? Honey, it's a terrible color. So
no problem. I'm gonna change the color and keep changing it. It worked out.
That's a fascinating subject you bring up, spirituality. Was Tio Neto someone who went to church on a frequent basis, or was his spirituality mainly inside?
From what I found, he went to church with Mom on Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay. But he didn't believe in the Catholic ways, all of them. He learned ways in Christianity from his mom. And where he didn't believe in confession. He said, Chester, you don't have to go talk to a man. And the priest is not a god. He's a man, just like us. He's not God on earth, okay, here. He's a man. The Pope is not God on earth. He's a man. He said, when you want to talk to God, Chester, you just talk to God. And if you want to ask for forgiveness, you just ask God and Jesus to forgive you. And Jesus will forgive you, Chester. And from that moment on, if you change your heart and follow after Jesus and acknowledge that Jesus died for your sins, that God Almighty Father sent his Son down here to die for your sins. He would tell me these things many times. Died for your sins, and you accept the fact that he died for your sins. And you know you're a sinful person made out of flesh. And, I was young, man, when he first started telling me this. I was in my 20s, okay? But later on, over the years, I started understanding these things. Then I read it in the Bible and read it, and well, Dad's right. How did he know all these things? And he would say, you are forgiven for your sins. And you're no longer you're no longer accounted as sin. God looks at you like you don't have sin. Now, we're sinful, and we're always going to sin because we're not perfect. We're made from the earth. But God looks at you like you're not sinful anymore. And when you get into the front of God, Jesus is going to say, yeah, I forgive you. And you're forgiven, Chester. And you walk right into heaven. We'll be with God forever and ever and ever. And he said, a million years from now, we're going to be talking. I don't know if we're going to remember much about this earth, but we're going to be talking, Chester. And I'm like, this is so awesome. To hear, somebody older than I am knows about things, to tell me about these things. And not only that, he was a Marine. He was a Marine from top to bottom, 100%, squared off, wanted everything spotlessly clean, bed made right. He taught Mom, told her, this is how you make a bed. And she's like, I know, honey.
I know, honey. You
Okay,
don't have to tell me, I already know. Okay.
So he was like a father to you in
Oh,
many
yeah.
ways.
Oh, yes.
More than the father I ever knew in my life. And I had a wonderful dad, okay? I learned everything I could imagine. And my dad used to say, my real dad, he would tell me, don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say, And I'm like, okay, Dad. I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church, and he would take me, on the weekends at 6 o'clock in the morning to be an altar boy. And I learned the Catholic ways and everything else. And so, it was great growing up as a godly family, people that believed in God. But when I met Dad and Mom over here, and that's different. Mom would tell me things that's straight from the Bible and reality of the Bible. And I'm like, Mom, how did you know this? Okay, because, you got to be Catholic Bible. She never busted open and looked at it and read. So she says, my mom taught me this. My mom told me this. My mom told me this. And DJ, the grandson, would talk to Mom about spiritual things that are in the Bible and the way life is with looking through the eyes of God and things. And he said, Mom knows this stuff. How does she know this stuff, Chester? How does she know what's in that Bible? What it says, all about God. I mean, you can ask her anything and she'll tell you. And tell you and tell you and tell you and tell you. She's like, wow. And that was because I've asked her many times, how do you know these things? Well, her mom told her these things. So did Dad's mom. So, you inherit these things from your parents in that regard. They tell you these things. Now, of course, you go to church. He would go to church with Mom and Elda, every single Sunday. And it was a wonderful thing. I would go with him when I was around. I'd go with him to church. It's awesome going to church. I mean, I love church. I love being around people that, have faith. And, but Dad was like, Chester, don't get caught up in religion. Religion is not God. God is God, not religion. And don't believe anything any of these religious people say, because generally they're out for money.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, he said, yes, that's true, Chester. They're out for money. That's what they do. That's how they stay in business. And I'm like, Dad, come on, you can't be like that. He said, look, Chester, I have faith. And through my life, I've shown people what it is to be good. And I said, well, yes, you have. I mean, I can't be a terrible guy just because I've known you and been around you. I lived with Mom and Dad at their house at times, okay? And it's like, it was like almost living in a monastery. They were so awesome. They'd get up in the morning, drink coffee, and we'd be talking about godly things. And I mean, it was beautiful.
I have, to wrap up this first video segment, and thank you. I look forward to having lunch with you. I wanted to ask you one question, and my mom has recently told me that she can feel my father's presence, like certain things will happen related to birds. And my question to you is, in the past 8 years since Tio Neto has transitioned to heaven, do you feel either his presence or certain things have happened where you could say, oh, that's Tio Neto?
Well, I could say I can, if you don't mind, ladies. When Dad had passed away, during the time he was alive, I was taking care of him full time as much as I could. And, it's not easy trying to support myself and Elda and my family, the house and everything else, my own house. And then living there with them at the same time I had my house. And all of a sudden, boom, it's over with. And taking Dad to the doctors all the time and everything else, and San Antonio to his wound care here, full time with Dad. And all of a sudden, it's over. And it's like, well, I can get a job. I can go back to work and I can make money, okay? Because I mean, I love working. I love making money and making Elda happy and making Mom proud over here of her son-in-law, you know? And I'm like, okay, there was no jobs here in Laredo. I mean, nothing that pays well. I mean, you could get jobs, but there's lots of people that would take that job. It's a dime a dozen for employees. And so, yeah, I prayed to God about these things. I need a job. You know, I need a job. I gotta have the things I gotta have, right? I know you give me everything we need. So I put an application resume in for Union Pacific. Went all the way to San Antonio for an interview. Stayed in a hotel at night, cost $100. And got the interview the next day. And the lady looks around. She says, nobody around. She says, you're too old. We're not gonna hire you. Well, I don't want to, you know, keep you on the line, just keep you going, but we're not going to hire you because you're too old. Just to be serious. Okay, fine. On the way home, I'm like, God, you know, I didn't get that job, but I know you got one lined up for me. This is just a warm up, right? Well, I got home and I told Mom and Dad and Elda what had happened, okay? And they said, well, you know, we know Dad's watching you. And Dad, just pray. So we went to the chapel over here on Del Mar, and the little Catholic chapel where, you know, most people go. Most anybody in Laredo knows about this little chapel. And so we all three went to the little chapel and we prayed, you know, and I never had a belief that, you know, I had to go somewhere and pray. Okay. You know, I mean, where you're at is where you're at, right? Pray to God. Well, I went to the chapel and a couple of days later, I get a call about the job that I have now. That I've had like 6 years now. Okay. And or more, and it's an awesome job. It's the best paying job in Laredo that you could ever have. There's other jobs like my job, but they don't pay as much as I'm getting paid. God is awesome, and all of us were like totally convinced Dad had a hand in this. Dad got this job for you, Chester, for sure, without a doubt. You know what I mean? So, you know, that was from the grave. Okay. And so, I mean, you know, I never believed in, you know, people are still alive and talking to you. I think, you know, when they're dead, and that's it, you know. Whatever we may think, we don't know, okay? We just don't know. I wished I could tell you. I've studied the Bible many times, the Bible on cassettes, the Bible on DVD. We've all watched it many, many, many times. We know what the Bible says about death and this and this and this. We got the thumb drives, the USB for the smart TVs. We watch it, you know, 100 times, the Bible, because it reads it to you. But we don't know for sure. We never died, okay? We haven't died. We don't know. I mean, as far as we know, our loved ones are standing out of here watching us. Who knows? You know, I mean, I don't know. You can surmise many things. And preachers can preach different things about this death stuff. But, I mean, I feel it. She feels it. Dad's around. Okay, Mom feels it, I know. And she talks to Dad. You know, not like, you know, he's not right there, you know. Like some people like, yeah, they come and sit on my bed with me, you know. I don't go that far. But, you know, they're as if Dad was still alive because he was such a enormous character that, I mean, you just can't wipe that away one day or 1 year away. You're still like, he's still here. I can't believe he's not walking through that door right now. Okay, just can't. He's such a character.
The Solis Spirit is still alive.
Yes. And same thing with Joe. I mean, it was like having Dad around when I talked to him. She would talk to him on the phone. I would listen, and it's like she's talking to her dad. And you know, to think that he's not alive, walking around. I mean, we can't go visiting now. You know, it's terrible. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. But you know, as terrible things happen in our lives and on this earth to all of us, it's nothing compared to what we're going to have in heaven. Nothing. Okay, so we have to keep our faith, which like Dad trained us all to faith. The little bit of faith goes a long way. So that's what I would suggest. That people stay with their head in the Bible, thinking about God, and, you know, their loved ones it never goes away. I mean, you can look at a picture of Dad and, start crying. Go to the cemetery. And I mean, just, it's heart-wrenching to think this man that was a great man is laying there 6 foot down in this box, okay? And he ain't moving. He's not worried about insurance no more. He's not worried about Mom anymore or Elda no more. His thoughts in life is over. So he's at peace, okay? Whether we believe he's with God right now or if he just, that's it until God comes back and lifts him out of that grave and we all see each other again, we don't know. But in the meantime, we know God is, that Ernesto's with us. We know. Dad's for sure with all of us. And Mom's a tough old bird. She don't sit and cry about things. I mean, she lost 2 children when they were born. Shortly afterwards, she's tough. Elda's tough. So seeing these ladies be tough, it's hard. It's hard for me to be tough. Mm-hmm. It's hard for the grandson to be tough because he bawls and cries for anything. And so, being a guy, seeing these girls not bawling constantly, I tried to make myself tough. And he wasn't even my dad. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he had a huge influence on me and everybody around us. So, the solicitors I've come to admire. When Mom first told me about him, I'll find out for myself. Yes, she's right. Okay. And then since then I've learned, Mom's right. You don't want to sit and believe somebody, if they say this and this, you just don't want to believe it. But I found that it's true. What she has to say is true. She's sensible. And, she only got it from God.
Yeah.
Now, Mom told me about her upbringings. Her mom and her grandma lived over here off San Francisco Street. And they would water their cows, generations ago. Come from Mexico over there and come over and would water their cows down in the creek. And all these different beautiful stories of when she was young, what she was told about her relatives. I mean, it's all going to be passed on someday. We're going to make sure it gets passed on. Because, your grandkids and their grandkids are going to know about the love that there is. Because they're losing it these days.
And that's a great word to end with, love, because that's really what the Oneto was about. And he just shared it with everyone. His cup was overflowing.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, Tia Carmen, Elda, and Chester. Thank you so much for the session. Hopefully we can do some more video shots today that I'm visiting Laredo. And if it's possible, I would love to visit Tio Neto.
Yes. We'll make sure of it. Yes, sir. It's a date.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.